The 45th gate, gathering together in the throat center, pointed down towards the ego center to its harmonic gate, the 21st gate, biting through. And together they form the channel of the money line and design of the materialist. The 45th gate is a gate in the throat, and as a gate in the throat it has a voice, and its voice is I have or I do not have. And this is the most powerful voice of possession that we have in the throat. The 45th gate's the gate of the gatherer. This is the natural and generally beneficial attraction of like forces. Now, everything about the 45th gate is that the 45th gate, technically speaking, sits at the head of the tribe. In other words, when we look at tribal circuitry, all of tribal circuitry is pointed through this channel of materialism. All of it is pointed towards the 45th gate as its expression. And so the 45th gate has this nickname of being the gate of the pasha, the gate of the king, the gate of the queen, the emperor, the empress. It is the switching of the numbers. The 54th gate at the very beginning of the tribal process is the marrying maiden. This is the gate of ambition, wanting to rise up and become the empress. The other side of it, the 45th gate. But the thing to see clearly about the 45th gate and this role of having control over a territory, in other words, being a leader in that sense, is that it begins with the first line theme. Remember, whenever you're looking at a hexagram, look at the first line. It will give you an understanding of its foundation. Here the foundation is canvassing. Now, obviously, that's a political term. It says the ability to promote and develop gathering together through the education of the uncommitted. The material direction lies in education, and the other side is an overzealousness that turns canvassing into proselytization. But both of those have to be understood. In other words, the role of the 45th gate, in order to have that position, in order to be able to express the I have or the I don't have, that they constantly have to make sure that they have support. And support is a very, very key word for the 45. Without support, their process on the mundane plane is very, very difficult. And everything about being the tribe is the tribe and tribal circuitry is rooted in the keynote of support. And yet for the 45th gate, that is very difficult. The 45th gate expects support from the other. It expects it from the other. Its natural position is to be the leader. Its natural position is to be a guide in that sense. However, if it does not directly support those who it insists on or seeks the support of, then it's never going to be able to have in its possessiveness what it is that it actually needs. Everything about the tribe is rooted in need. Everything about the 45th gate is rooted in need. It is this I need to have. Now, if you have a defined throat, and it's not connected to a motor, and you have this gate activated, then you're always saying, I need to have, or I don't need to have, when in fact you don't even know if that's true. When the throat is defined and not connected to a motor, this is what we call a verbal gunslinger. This is things that are just being said, but it doesn't mean that they are real. Everything about being correct begins with operating correctly as yourself through your strategy and your authority. And it's only through the strategy and the authority that a being who carries the 45th gate in their throat can express what is the legitimate needs or not. Not only that, but will have the ability, if it's operating correctly, to canvass the others. And to make sure that they recognize that you are also there to support them as their voice. Whenever somebody has the 45th gate, ultimately they are here to be a voice that expresses the needs of others. And it's the most important role of the 45th gate, is to be a spokesperson for the others. But not a spokesperson out of their own narrow perspective, but a spokesperson who can speak as a result of canvassing and can express the real needs of those that are offering their support. The 26th gate, the taming power of the great, the maximization of power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. Well, it sounds good. This is the gate of the egoist. And as the gate of the egoist, it is the sales representative of the tribe. It's more than that. As a sales representative, that operates both on the commercial plane as well as the military plane. In other words, these are also the soldiers of the tribe. What's interesting about the 26th gate to begin with is its association biologically. That is, it is related to the T cells, and the T cells are part of our immune system. They're part of our protection system. And basically, the T cells, along with the thymus gland, that the T cells themselves are sort of the body's soldiers. You know, they destroy anything that enters into the body that could do harm to the body. The 26th gate is also a hot gate, as opposed to the 44th gate, which is a cool gate. And together they form this channel of surrender, the design of the transmitter. Many of you who have been listening to my radio broadcasts over the last year or so know that I've talked a lot about the 26th gate because we had Pluto there for 3 years. And this had an enormous impact on the relationship between humanity and one of the basic areas of its food chain, that is with birds and with fish and with reptiles. That is, the channel 4426 is a cross-special channel between humans and those forms. And my discussion, particularly about the 26, was that with Pluto in the 26, we had the whole beginning of the avian flu problem. We also are going to have, by the way, Pluto returning via retrograde to the 26th gate, and that's going to be coming up. The 26th gate is very powerful. You know, and the dilemma of the 26th gate is that the tribe needs to be manipulated in order to be moved. This is one of the things about the nature of the tribe, is that the tribe is inherently conservative. It's not easy to convince the tribe of anything, particularly of innovation. And yet, genetically speaking, if the tribe doesn't innovate, it ultimately will die. Everything about the splenic side of tribal circuitry is that it's deeply materialistic, entrepreneurial, capitalistic in that sense. And yet capitalistic in the sense that it is only by maintaining and innovating creatively in the material domain that the tribe can be preserved, that its language, its territory, its culture is something that can be nurtured because there is the financial stability to be able to do so. In fact, almost all materialism begins here in this tribal configuration, because basically all business traditionally has been ma and pa businesses, small family businesses, which is still a great part of the commerce of the world, whether you're in the fourth world or you're in the first world. This is still very much a part of the way in which we operate. So the 26th gate has an unusual role. That is, it has a role to convince the tribe to innovate. That's not always easy. And so the 26th gate is a gate that is deeply manipulative in the way it uses its ego. It can tell great stories. That is, this is the gate of the trickster. This is the gate of the hustler. This is the gate that can fool you into buying something. This is the gate that tells you that what you're about to buy is the best thing you're ever going to buy in your whole life. It's also the gate that will stand and fight for the interests of the tribe. And whether that is representing the tribe in a philosophical or dynamic role, or whether that is protecting the tribe physically, and physically with its life, this is the nature of the 26th gate. What is most difficult is that most people don't have a defined ego. And that means that a gate such as this operates inconsistently and only operates under the conditioning of others. What happens is that the 26th gate ends up being a gate that can make promises that it can never keep. And as such, it begins to lose its sense of self-worth. Anyone who has an open ego center, an open heart center, is always subject to feeling undervalued and feeling it a requirement to prove themselves in this life. For the 26 that is inconsistent, there is nothing to prove. And it's very, very dangerous for them to think that they can back up consistently, the egoism that they can display under conditioning. The key always in human design: honor your strategy. Follow your inner authority. Operate correctly as yourself. And whether your ego is defined or not, you will operate in a way that is healthy. It begins to lose its sense of self-worth. Anyone who has an open ego center, an open heart center, is always subject to feeling undervalued and feeling it a requirement to prove themselves in this life. For the 26 that is inconsistent, there is nothing to prove. And it's very, very dangerous for them to think that they can back up consistently, the egoism that they can display under conditioning. The key always in human design: honor your strategy. Follow your inner authority. Operate correctly as yourself. And whether your ego is defined or not, you will operate in a way that is healthy for you and not place you in a situation where you will suffer. The 45th gate, gathering together in the throat center, pointed down towards the ego center to its harmonic gate, the 21st gate, biting through. And together they form the channel of the money line and design of the materialist. The 45th gate is a gate in the throat, and as a gate in the throat it has a voice, and its voice is I have or I do not have. And this is the most powerful voice of possession that we have in the throat. The 45th gate's the gate of the gatherer. This is the natural and generally beneficial attraction of like forces. Now, everything about the 45th gate is that the 45th gate, technically speaking, sits at the head of the tribe. In other words, when we look at tribal circuitry, all of